A magical phone that fulfills any wish of its owner who activated it after being buried for years. If one day you found a magical phone that achieves any wish just by thinking of it, especially when you didn't have a penny, how would you react? Can you imagine the things you could do with such a phone? If not, check out the movie Hell Phone, released in 2007. It's a fantasy film that begins in a schoolyard with students just finishing their classes and getting ready to go home, and the bald principal walks among them, with everyone greeting him, hoping that he'll remember their faces if they ever get into trouble. They'd remind him, saying, "We greeted you before, we're well-behaved and have always liked you, so please go easy on us." Then a boy and his red-headed friend, standing hidden in a corner, watching someone closely. They are watching three girls, but they're not really interested in all three because wasting is forbidden. They're watching Angie, the girl Sid is in love with, and he's dying to talk to her. As soon as they see her and her friends walking past the school gate, his red-headed friend says, "Come on, man, this is your chance." Sid grabs his skateboard, slides down the street, and passes by them to get ahead of them. Sid kept winking and smiling at her until he found himself in front of a trash collector with a garbage basket. Before he could do anything, he collided with the trash collector and fell into the garbage, making everyone who saw it laugh at him. Here, Sid got up and approached Angie, who stood in front of him with all her friends surrounding him. He told her, "I'm really impressed with you, Angie." She replied, "What's new? The whole school is impressed with me, buddy." He asked, "Can we go out tonight?" She responded, Oh, slow down. Take my number and call me, and we'll hang out for a bit." At this time, we see Virgil, the richest guy at school, who is also a complete jerk. His friend next to him says, "Tell me, man, he's trying to steal the girl." He said, "Forget about him. He's an idiot and living in a fantasy anyway." Then Sid tells Angie that he doesn't actually have a phone to call her on. She replied, "That's your problem, not mine. Fix it and call me." Then the red-headed friend comes up and offers his phone, saying, "You can call me if you want." She responds, "Are you guys competing to see who gets her first?" Angie and her friends get into the car of Virgil, the rich guy, who is waiting for them with his friends. They speed away in the car, ignoring people, traffic, and everything else. Then Sid tells his friend, "I have to go now to eat before I head to work." Then he goes home and, as usual, calls for his mother as soon as he wakes up or enters the house, looking for her immediately. He goes into the kitchen and finds his brother lying dead on the floor next to the knife used to kill him. After seeing his brother covered in sauce and pretending to be dead, he quickly starts eating and drinking while standing. When his mother enters the kitchen, he tells her to wait and see his brother who was killed and drowned in his own blood. The mother responds, saying it's good he stays on the floor because if he moves, she might actually kill him over the spilled sauce. Then she asks the older brother if he ate before going to work, to which he replies yes. She tells him to hurry up so he doesn't get late for Mr. Fritz. He asks her if he can have the birthday money she promised him. She asks if he wants it now, and he says yes if possible. She gives him what she has, which is only 30. Apologizing for the small amount. He goes to work, and while working, Mr. Fritz, the restaurant manager, is yelling at the workers as usual. He asks, "How many chickens did you burn today?" The worker replies that he didn't burn anything and walks away. Then he asks Mr. Fritz for a small favor, saying he needs 50 euro this month for his birthday. Mr. Fritz responds, 50 euro, really? How about 40 instead? The worker agrees, but Mr. Fritz says that's still too much and suggests 30 euro. The worker insists on 20 euro, reminding Mr. Fritz it's his birthday. He said, "Isn't your birthday gift a bit small?" and then pulled out 100 euros, telling him to enjoy it. The worker thanked Mr. Fritz, saying, 100 euros? God bless you, Mr. Fritz. But when he looked at the money, he realized it wasn't real currency. It was a piece of paper shaped like money. He then understood that Mr. Fritz was just joking with him and told him to get back to work, saying, "You fool, there's no money, just get back to work." After finishing his shift, Sid went to a store that sells both new and used items. He said, "Good evening, I'm looking for a mobile phone." The shopkeeper responded, "Oh, sure, this one is 100 euro. It's used but has a good camera, storage, and all the features." Sid replied, "No, I need something cheaper." The shopkeeper said, "All right, there's a Nokia for 90 euro. You can throw it against the wall and it'll still work." He said, "Look, I'm on a tight budget. I need the cheapest thing you have." The shopkeeper asked, "What are you looking for?" Sid replied, "If you have anything for 30 euro, that would be great." The shopkeeper responded, "With or without a SIM card?" Sid said, "Without a line, and I'll manage." The shopkeeper agreed. "All right, no problem." The shopkeeper gave him a phone in a box and said, "Look at this." Sid asked, "Is this a toy phone or what?" The shopkeeper replied, "A toy. This phone is worth 500 euro, but for you it's 30 euro." Sid was surprised and said, "From 500 to 30? That's perfect. I'll take it." As soon as he took it, he asked, "How does this charge? What kind of battery does it have? Does it charge or work?" The shopkeeper said, "It doesn't actually work." Sid said, "Give me my money, you thief." The shopkeeper responds, No, dude. Once it's sold, it doesn't come back. But miraculously, the phone started working in Sid's hand. The shopkeeper was startled and said, "What is this?" "It's the first time it's worked for someone." "Take your money," Sid said. "Aren't you the one who said that the merchandise can't be returned or exchanged?" He took the phone and left for university. Angie and her two friends, one of whom says, "Enjoy. You're now in front of a big star. Everyone. I got accepted as a double for a big actress because my hair is exactly like hers." Then Sid comes in front of them and says, "Angie, can I have a word?" One of the girls, impressed with her hair, says, "Wow, this funny guy is with us now? He'll make us look bad at school." Angie tells them, "Okay guys, I'll talk to him." Meanwhile, he mentions he got a new phone. The girl with the good hair asks, "Is that a toy or what?" Then the bell rang, and Angie left after asking for permission. After that, the red-headed friend came over and asked, "So, what happened?" He replied, "Nothing at all. She didn't even ask for my number and I don't have a SIM card or subscription yet." His friend said, "Forget it, it's okay." Meanwhile, Angie and her friends keep laughing at the guy's attempt to talk to her. When they all left the lab, Virgil, Angie's friend, and his gang continued to bully the red-headed guy. One of them said, "You motherfucker." They all got into a fight until the school principal came in and told everyone to sit down. During the commotion, the phone started working on its own inside the backpack of Sid. The phone called one of Angie's friends, and as soon as she answered, the girl grabbed a gas canister and lighter, setting the other girl's hair on fire, who was happily flaunting her hair. The teacher continued to scream and brought a fire extinguisher to put out the girl's hair before she could be seriously harmed. Then, the principal's office with the girl who set her friend's hair on fire and a police officer. The girl insists that she didn't know what happened. She received a phone call and then everything changed. She said she didn't know who he was. They checked her phone and found an unknown number. The officer told her to leave, and if they needed her, they would contact her. She agreed, and the officer informed the principal that he would update him on any new developments. The principal doesn't care, more interested in the two fish in front of him than in anything else, and the officer left. The two friends heading to the shop where they usually buy secondhand items at low prices. They find a new seller who tells them that a man, who used to be there, is gone. He says he is now in charge and that no one can buy on credit anymore. They ask how they can buy, and he tells them they can't buy at all because he doesn't like their looks. They respond, saying he seems crazy and is annoying them. They decide not to buy anything and leave. Then Sid at night, holding the phone and saying he wants to call Angie. He pours out his feelings, telling her that he loves her, can't live without her, and that his days and nights are meaningless without her. Suddenly, he sees Angie on the phone, asking, "What else?" He responds, "How did you get here? This is unbelievable." She tells him, "You called me." He replies, "I swear this phone has no signal, internet, or camera. It's strange." He ends the call, confused, feeling that the phone is unusual and something supernatural is happening. The next day, the gym class where everyone is focused, and Angie nudges Sid, reminding him of what he said yesterday. He tells his friend that the phone called her on its own and that there must be something strange about it. His friend asks, "Strange how?" At that moment, the teacher notices them, scolds Sid, and asks him a question, demanding the answer. The phone activates on its own, showing the result. Sid gives the answer, and the teacher, seeing the phone's display, says, "We don't have a calculator." Sid replies, "This isn't a calculator." The teacher grabs the phone, examines it, and then throws it out of the window. Sid shouts, "What the hell are you doing?" After that, the teacher tells them to stay after school to complete extra homework due to their misbehavior. After the class, they go to retrieve the phone from where it was thrown, and surprisingly, it has no scratches at all. They're puzzled about how it ended up like that. Then, Sid goes to sleep, and during the night, the teacher receives a call and appears to be dazed as if drugged. The next day, Sid wakes up to find the phone has set up a birthday message saying, "Happy birthday, my friend." Later, Sid goes to his friend, says, "Let's go," greets his mother, and then they both leave. While they're walking, he tells his friend everything that happened with the phone and suggests, "Why don't we have it help us deal with that gym teacher?" He said, "Okay," and the phone indeed called the principal's secretary. They discovered that the secretary thought they were the gym teacher. They then asked her to cancel the punishment for the two students they mentioned. She responded, "All right, don't worry." And they added, "And the food today will be McDonald's for the students." She agreed, "Okay, no problem." Then the gym teacher, sitting on the floor, eating chalks, until the janitor walked in, was shocked by the sight and screamed, alerting the entire school. Next, the two friends who decided that the first thing they would do, now that they knew the phone could fulfill all their desires, was to make the most of it. They went to buy things from the thrift store they had always wanted, and no one would hold them accountable, using the phone that deceives people. After resolving their issues with the shop owner, they managed to get everything they wanted and were pleased, feeling happy and content. Then they did whatever childish things they could think of, but unfortunately, had no place to get women. So they decided to go to a brothel. They spent time there playing, joking, and spending money. Later, they are walking through the downtown, stopping in front of a concert hall. They saw Angie and her friends, and as they were about to approach them, Virgil and his friends emerged from underground. Virgil and his friends said, "Aren't you going to leave our girls alone?" And a fight was about to start. But then, a thief came and stole Angie's bag, running off with it. Sid and his red-headed friend began to chase the thief using their skateboards. Virgil and his friends jumped into their car to catch the thief before Sid and his friend, hoping Angie wouldn't be impressed by them if they caught the thief first. Meanwhile, the phone tried to help our hero by calling one of Virgil's friends, making him steer Virgil's car into a construction site. Sid and Angie ran towards the signal where the motorcycle thieves had crashed. Thankfully, they managed to take back Angie's bag. When the police arrived and arrested the thieves, our hero took Angie for a walk along the promenade. He confessed his feelings to her and asked if she would go out with him in the evening. The next day, he and his red-headed friend used the phone to call the history teacher and asked what would be on the exam. But the teacher seemed dazed or confused by the phone and agreed, saying, "All right, guys, don't worry." Later, as they were heading home, the red-headed friend noticed someone dragging his friend into a room and ran to check who it was. Then he finds Virgil and his friends restraining them in a room. Virgil threatens him, saying he'll kill him if he doesn't stay away from Angie. He was about to use the phone, but his friend yelled at him, saying, "No, man!" Then the girl with the burned hair comes in, apologizing and saying they should let him go because Angie said he promised to get her the history exam questions. They told her, "Fine, we'll let him go this time and see what to do next." They get the history exam from him, and everyone leaves the exam happy. Angie is seen wearing a short wig to show solidarity with her friend whose hair was burned. She was about to go out with Virgil and suggested they invite him to eat with them. Virgil replied, "Eat with us? He's trash." She called him over, and he joined them, but Virgil continued to insult him. Virgil said, "Do you all know this guy? His dad left his mom and divorced her for a third-rate dancer." This upset Sid, who didn't know how to respond or what to say. At the same time, Angie tried to quiet Virgil, telling him to stop as it was going too far. Sid then stood up and used his phone to take revenge on Virgil. When Virgil answered the phone, he seemed dazed and started dancing and singing in the middle of the crowd. Everyone began to clap along. But what was unusual was when he started undressing piece by piece. His friends and Angie were puzzled by his behavior until he had stripped off all his clothes. Angie, feeling embarrassed and uncomfortable, decided to leave the scene, removing her wig as she went. Sid followed her outside, finding her upset. He asked if she was all right, trying to comfort her and make sense of the situation with Virgil. Sid told Angie, "He's just a fool. You're the only one who can't see that. I told you I love you and that I'm a good person, but it seems like nothing will ever be enough for you." He took off all his clothes in the middle of the school and embarrassed everyone. Then they talked a bit, and in the end, he asked her, "So, are you going to give me a chance to go out with you? Or are you going to reject me like every time?" She said, "All right, fine, I'm agreeing. Come by my place at 6 or 7 tonight, and we'll go out." He said, "Okay then." Later that evening, he shows up dressed up in a suit, checking himself out. Since it's just a casual outing, but it's his first time going out with a girl, so he's making an effort. He takes his braces off, and when he's about to leave, his friend shows up and tells him, "You need to get rid of that phone." He replies, "Are you crazy?" His friend says, "That phone is going to get you into serious trouble." He responds, "Just admit that you're jealous, and that the phone is burning you up because it's doing everything I want." His friend said, "All right, man, it's done. I'm leaving." When he was heading out, his mother asked, "What's with the fancy outfit? Where did you get the money for this suit?" He replied, "From a shop." She asked, "Where are you going?" He said, "Just out with some friends." Then she told him, "Something really strange happened. I got a lot of stuff at work and money, but I don't know why." He told her, "Just thank your God." She said, "Okay, but be careful not to make Mr. Fritz upset if you're late." Then, as he was heading out, his little brother tried to touch him, so he yelled at him and said, "Don't, you'll dirty the suit." His brother replied, "Okay, go fuck yourself." Then, Fritz at the restaurant, doing his favorite job of humiliating the workers. After that, he gets a phone call, answers it, and hangs up. Once he hangs up, he puts his face in the eggs, then in the breadcrumbs, and then sticks his head into the oil, all while causing panic and screams from everyone in the place. Next, Sid, who goes to Angie's house, meets her mother, and then enters, saying, "How attractive you are." Then her father comes in and says, "Good grief, is your father the best skater in history?" He replies, "Yes, man, you're keeping up." Then Angie shows him around the house and he says, "Let's go to the cinema now." As they head out, he tells her, "Your family is really rich and famous." Then she asks him, "Is this your car?" He replies, "Yes, is there a problem?" She says, "No," and gets in the car with him. Meanwhile, Virgil and his friends were hanging out as usual when suddenly they saw a car speeding by. One of them says, "Isn't that Angie with the guy?" Virgil looks and says, "That's my grandpa's car. Did someone steal it or what?" They decide to follow the car. Then Sid with Angie goes to the cinema, and they watch the film and talk. In the middle of the movie, he remembers that his phone is in the car and leaves to go get it, leaving her behind. As soon as he goes out to get his phone, he finds Virgil and his friends outside. They grab him, beat him up, and take the car driving away. The phone is in the car, and he returns to the cinema, where Angie tends to his wounds and tells him, "How could those guys do that? They're such bastards." He tells her that the car isn't his. She responds, "Not everything is about money. I love you for who you are, not for anything else." He says, "Really?" She says, "You should have told me earlier. This suit is suffocating me. I'm not used to wearing it." Then they get absorbed in the film. Angie encourages him for the forbidden temptations. Then Virgil and his friends joyriding in the car, having a great time and taking sharp turns left and right. Suddenly, they hear a phone ringing inside the car. One of them answers it and suddenly finds himself outside the car. Virgil and his friend drive off, and the guy lights a cigarette, not noticing that he's in the middle of the road and the car is heading back towards him. When Sid and Angie exit the cinema, they find the police behind them and are taken to the station where they see Virgil and his friend. They say, "Yes, officer, this is the guy who stole my grandpa's car and killed our friend." The officer starts questioning him and Angie, but suddenly the phone starts ringing on its own, and the officer's phone rings as well. The officer is distracted, then apologizes to the hero saying, "I'm very sorry, please go and take your phone." They leave the station, and the guy heads to his friend's house to tell him what happened. Angie asks, "Are you going to leave me and walk in the street alone at night?" Then he goes to his friend's house, only to be surprised by his friend's mother waiting for him, wearing nothing. It turns out that the phone called her to set him up and create a rift between him and his friend, so he wouldn't be close to him anymore. His friend then comes and finds him in a compromising situation with his mother, yelling at him. Sid tries to call out to him to explain what's happening, but he doesn't hear and leaves. Afterward, Sid tries to destroy the phone, but it's futile. He then heads to the deepest part of the city, throws the phone away, and leaves. Then Angie gathering Virgil and the rest of his friends, telling them about what she noticed in the phone that Sid had. She explains what happened, and the door being knocked on forcefully like a police raid. He finds people working on the sewer system, and one of them tells him, "Your phone, sir, was lost, but we found it for you." After they leave, he takes the phone from them. As he's walking away, he sees his red-headed E, and he goes to check on his friend. Our hero tells the guy everything that happened, and the guy replies, "I believe you, man." But the phone rings, saying, "Why do you want to get rid of me? I love you. Anyone who tries to harm me while I'm with you, I'll kill," just like Angie and her friends. Then Angie and her friends standing together in the kitchen when the phone rings. They are all too scared to answer, but suddenly one of them picks up and finds out it was just a prank. Then one of them gets a call from her mother, but it wasn't her mother. After a few seconds, she starts grabbing knives and stabs her in the stomach in front of them. Suddenly, the girl with the burnt hair grabs a pot of boiling water and throws it at Virgil's friend. And then another person kills her. The person who killed the girl starts hitting Virgil with a popcorn machine in the head. Suddenly, a dog hears the phone ringing and steps on it. Then, the dog goes on to bite Virgil's friend and kills him. Meanwhile, Sid and his friend are on their way to save Angie. When they arrive, they find Angie's mother has returned and is trying to kill her. They try to save her and manage to get upstairs. They then think of a way to get rid of the phone, and Angie tells them there's an electrical press downstairs that they could use. As they are heading to the press, Virgil gets up and tries to kill them. Thankfully, after some fighting and a near-fatal struggle, they manage to use the electrical press. After the phone is crushed by the press, everything seems to calm down. However, they soon find that the phone starts to reassemble itself, and they need to find a way to get rid of it before it returns to its original state. Sid comes up with an idea: to use the chemistry lab at school to dissolve the phone in the acids there. When they arrive at the lab, the phone has already returned to its original form. As soon as it's opened, all the phones in the classroom start ringing. Angie says, "Whoever answers their phone will be in big trouble. Do you all get it?" Then the teacher phone rings, and as she drinks acid, she dies. At the same time, all the students' phones ring simultaneously, and they all swarm Angie and the red-headed friend with Sid, trying to take the phone from them before it causes more chaos. They run away and find refuge in the lab, but soon realize the entire school is chasing them, trying to kill them. Sid says goodbye to Angie, telling her that he loves her deeply, and he is about to kiss her. She responds, saying, "Your hands are cold." He tells her, "That's a brilliant idea," and explains, "We can freeze the phone with liquid nitrogen, the same stuff they use for making ice cream." They try to implement the plan, but the principal arrives and tries to kill them as well. He grabs the phone and his hand gets stuck in the ice, trying to prevent them from placing the phone in the liquid nitrogen. In the end, The cylinder ends up in the hands of the red-headed guy, and he receives a phone call. They think he might be knocked out too, but thankfully, he still manages to throw the phone into the ice. Everything finally stops, and it turns out that the red-headed guy had placed earplugs in his ears to avoid being affected by the phone's influence. Then everything calms down, and they decide to destroy the phone. They leave it in the ice and take the cylinder with them to travel on a trip across the Atlantic. They throw the cylinder into the deepest part of the ocean, and a shark ends up eating. The movie ends.